Hello, and welcome to Crimson Falls. We're so glad to have you here. Please check the description for directions to the entrance. We wouldn't want you getting lost now. But for our returning residents, welcome back. Ho ho, boy, oh boy, oh boy. I am beyond excited to finally read this story and post it. I love this character. I love this story. I have so many ideas for them that will come up later in the story that I'm already envisioning. And oh, it's going to be so much fun. I am not even going to attempt to take full credit for this character. I'm not even going to take partial credit. This character came to life because my dear, dear friend Cameron gave me a character when I asked them to kindly give me a character idea, and they came up with this. And I love this character very, very, very much. And I hope you like them too. She is interesting to say the least, but I'll let the story speak for itself. So, without further ado, here is a simple person with a difficult secret. The words used to describe people were always tame, sweet, kind, intelligent, charming. These words were seen as compliments, and most would be grateful to receive such words directed towards them. Ash was not most people. She was a person that was content to be in the background. But, as with a lot of strange situations, destiny seemingly had a plan of its own. She woke up in her sparse bedroom, dull beige walls adding to the mundane routine of her daily life. She sat on the edge of her bed, stretching her arms above her head and groaning. Feels like I got hit by a train, she thought as she stood up and walked to the bathroom. She thought about turning on the light but decided against it, letting the natural light coming from the window be her source of sight. She looked into the mirror and examined herself. Her long, curly hair was messy and shot in different directions. Her eyes looked heavy, as though keeping them open took most of her attention. She leaned forward and narrowed her eyes. She rubbed her face for a moment and decided a shower would probably help her wake up. She discarded her clothes and stepped into the large tub and turned the water on. For a moment, she just let the water flow over her, letting the warmth fill her senses. It wasn't often she got a moment to herself to just enjoy normal things, so she cherished the few that she got. After actually taking the time to clean herself, she exited the bathroom and began to get dressed for work. Ash did construction work. It wasn't exactly hard, but it was no cakewalk. Plus, it was the only job that didn't give a shit about where you came from and only cared if she was able to be useful. She put on her paint-stained t-shirt, her blue denim jeans, and grabbed her working boots. She sat on the edge of her bed again, about to put her boots on, when her phone started vibrating on the nightstand. She glanced over and saw a picture of a woman with slightly tanned skin, hazel eyes, and short brown hair with the name Jess displayed on the screen. That can't be good, she whispered to herself before answering the call. Hello? Hey, good morning, Ash. Just calling to let you know that Jake changed the schedule last minute. Again, Jess said, her slight Jersey accent leaking into the sentence. Let me guess, Ash began, trying to make me do midnight. Bingo, Jess responded. I keep telling him it's never gonna happen, but does he listen to me? Of course not. Just when you get here, don't chew him out too bad, alright? He still needs to approve my vacation time. The pair shared a small laugh. I'll deal with him, don't worry, Ash explained. The phone call ended, and Ash continued to put on her boots. Realizing the conversation took a little bit too much time, she rushed to her car and sped down the road towards the construction site. Crimson Falls isn't a big town, so construction isn't exactly constant. However, to make up for it, the pay has increased substantially, so who is she to complain? After a short 15-minute drive, thank you universe for non-existent small-town traffic, Ash pulled into the makeshift parking lot of the site and saw Jake, the project manager, already waiting for her. Great. Saving the trouble of looking for you, she thought to herself and smirked. She stepped out of her car and slammed the door a little harder than she intended. There they are, the muscle with the hustle, Jake explained with a little bit too much energy. Hey, Jake. What's this I'm hearing about a schedule change? Ash asked, suppressing her frustration. Yeah, about that, he responded, shrinking into himself slightly. Dude, we've talked about this. Under no circumstances can I work night shifts. If you need help, get someone else or change another schedule. This has been happening too much. Ash explained, frustration slowly resurfacing. I know, but I was just wondering if you could make an exception just this once? Jake hesitated on the last few words. Ash leaned down slightly so that her and Jake's eyes were level. Maybe I wasn't clear. Ash started before closing her eyes for a moment. Opening them again, Jake began to shake slightly. If I need to talk to you about this again, it won't be a conversation. Understand? She narrowed her eyes, making sure his full attention was on her. He nodded slowly and swallowed hard. Good. She stood up straight and walked away to begin her work. As she walked away, she spotted Jess with a very large grin on her face. Ash walked right past her, not saying anything. Jess caught up and walked beside her. That was amazing, Jess exclaimed after a few moments of silence. Seriously, you have to tell me a secret. Ash chuckled while shaking her head. Glad to find you find it so amusing. And my secrets are not for sharing, not even for best friends. Jess pouted and crossed her arms. Yeah. 2 years later and you're still a giant ball of mysteries. Ash smiled. That's me, she responded, causing both of them to laugh. The pair begins working while the rest of the day goes by unnoticed. As the sun grows lower in the sky, Ash begins packing up the equipment she used that day. Hey, let's go out for drinks, a random worker yelled at the entire site. A couple of people voiced responses of agreement. Ash just shied. Every now and then, she wishes she could hang out with people and be normal. But things weren't that easy. Not for her. Not wanting to dwell on it too much, she got in her car and began driving home. As she drove down the road, her mind began to wander to old memories. Stay strong, sweetheart. I love you so much. Those words echoed through her mind over and over. The last memory she had of... She was abruptly brought back to reality when she had to turn quickly back into the correct lane. By the time she returned home, the sun was almost completely set. Made it, but barely, she grumbled to herself. Parking in the small parking lot, she exited the car and climbed the stairs to her apartment. Stepping inside, she breathed a sigh of relief. Ash moved to the window and watched the last hints of gold disappear into the vast expanse of darkness and stars. Her eyes fell upon the moon, and the same thing that happened every night of her life began. Her already muscular arms grew in size. Her long hair grew more thick and chaotic. Her nails grew to a sharp point, and her canine teeth grew larger. Her right eye, normally dull brown, became a bright gold color. She grew taller, and the ears and tail that normally weren't visible appeared. Asha grunted as the transformation took place, knowing that the sensation would never feel normal but wasn't painful. Once the transformation was complete, she continued her nighttime routine of waiting until the sun came up and getting what little sleep she could before work. She walked over to the fridge, her legs seemingly moving on their own. Opening the door, her eyes fell upon a large container on the bottom shelf. She reached out for it, drool falling from her mouth. Closing the door, she made her way to the living room. She opened the container, and the smell hit her nose immediately. A long, dead rabbit sat in the container, completely intact, except for the large gash across its throat. She felt her breath begin to grow quicker. She quickly began eating and let the relief wash over her. I hate how much I love this, she thought to herself. Completing her meal, she turned on the television, hoping to relax for a while. But for some reason, her nerves were on edge. Something was not right. What the hell is that? She asked out loud. She began to sniff the air, hoping to find the source of the weird presence. Her nose locked into the scent and she followed it. The trail led her near the front door. She grabbed the door handle and heard a quiet gasp, followed by footsteps running away. Ash threw open the door and looked around. She spotted the person running down the hall and she decided to give chase. Before exiting her apartment, she remembered that she couldn't let anyone see her. Not like this. She threw on a large hoodie she kept by the door just in case she needed to go out at night and ran outside. Ash moved quickly but carefully down the hall, keeping the scent of her target. The figure led her back to the parking lot, and Ash studied the different cars around her. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing. Her ear flicked in the direction of car keys falling to the ground, and she grinned. She walked in the direction of the sound and saw the figure who was also wearing a hood. Ash began to run towards the figure as they began to run once more. Her target was much slower than she was, and she easily tackled the stranger to the hard ground. She pinned the stranger by their arms and growled as she leaned in towards their face, preparing to attack, but stopped as she studied the person's face. "Please don't kill me, I was just checking on my friend," yelled the voice that Ash immediately recognized. The stranger opened their eyes and made eye contact with Ash. There was a moment of recognition before the other woman spoke. "Ash? Is that you?" She just asked slowly, voice shaking slightly. Well, this night certainly got very annoying very quickly. Ash figured this conversation would happen eventually, and apparently eventually was tonight. Great. She stood up and reached out her hand to help Jess. Jess accepts and is lifted back to her feet. Ash pulls her hood back and sighs. "Jess, you and me have a lot to talk about."